Welcome to Direction Northeast. Hello, I'm Emily Whitehead. This program is a presentation of the Communications Department of Northeast State Community College. This episode of Direction Northeast will take you from the streets of El Salvador to the classroom at George Mason University. We'll meet our guests and start our discussion following these messages.
My name is Brad Ketcherin. I'm a registered nurse and I got my start at Northeast State. I chose nursing because it gives me the opportunity to take care of people. I know I'll always have a job and it gives me the opportunity to travel, which I've always wanted to do. So Northeast State was a great start for me. I was able to get my associate's degree there and transfer to a four-year college to get my RN license. I had always planned on going to college, but I wasn't really sure where I was going to go. After graduating Northeast State, I can truly say it was a good decision.
Our guest today is known as the Face of Peace. He is a former gang member and is now a med student at George Mason University. He currently works with Perritos Unidos United Neighborhoods, positively impacting at-risk youth. Welcome, Juan Pacheco. How are you today?
To be here.
Good, good. So, I want you to tell me a little bit about your childhood. Now, it says you're from El Salvador. So, what was that like growing up there a little bit?
You know, as a young child, I remember my country as a safe place to be. Place that I was surrounded by love and caring parents, connected community. I felt like I belonged.
Right, right.
And so, you know, many of us know that, you know, in my country there was a civil war that lasted about 12 years. So imagine being a child and having your whole world be turned around by chaos, you know, and being exposed to horrible things every day, hearing that neighbors were gone, that had disappeared, finding people, you know, out you were playing and you would find people dead, you know, having you and your family, your sisters, brothers, family, you know, having to hide away from, you know, bullets and battles that were going on around our town. So, I mean, you know, my life drastically changed once I was exposed to that type of environment, you know. Environment has a lot to do with how you view the world. And so, you know, eventually, you know, my parents did what any courageous parent would do to make sure that your child has a second chance at life. You know, sometimes children they don't even have the first chance at life. So parents do what they must do to make sure that they can protect their children. And so for us, it took us moving from my country to the United States in order to escape that type of level of violence.
Right, right. And so when your parents, you said, you know, your country was really loving and stuff at first, so you kind of you was more in the middle class, you know, you had an easier childhood than most, right?
No, you know, I would say that the way I look at my situation when I was young, it was a challenging situation. You know, you know, poor people never just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm poor. You know, you go through some things and you experience some things and you face hardships and you know, as a child, sometimes you don't know what struggles and pain, suffering, humiliation our parents go through when, you know, to give us the basic necessities. So, you know, in El Salvador, sure, we had that type of poverty of not having, you know, luxuries and not having, you know, split-level home or nice car and latest clothes and all those things. But we were rich in the things that actually mattered. And that was relationship. It was familia. It was my mom and dad being able to go out there and you know, before the war, being able to exercise what they studied in college to do. My father's an accountant. My mom's a social worker. So before the war, they were out there, you know, serving people, working, being valuable members of society, you know, helping people with what they learned in college. So, you know, once the, you know, the war hit, you know, those things kind of changed.
Okay,
you know?
So your parents saw moving to America as like an opportunity.
They saw it as the only chance for us not to join the only two sides that we thought we needed to join. You either were part of one group or part of the other. But, you know, the way I explain it is like, our family was victim of a nation that believed that there was only two choices, right? That were both trying to destroy each other. It makes no sense. Our struggle wasn't about, political ideology. It wasn't about democracy or communism. It was about being strugglers. We didn't care about all that stuff. We just wanted to survive. It was a struggle of poor people trying to survive, and the power elite, right? Just never being satisfied with the things that they were taking. It was that type of war. And so my parents made the only choice that they could, escaping everything that they knew. Right? They left everything behind. Their culture, their language, their education, their familia, their way of life. Think about you. If somebody would ask you what hand do you write with?
Yeah, my right.
Imagine if I ask you, hey, go write a dissertation with your left. That's something insignificant, small, writing with your left. Imagine what it takes for a human being to let go of everything that he knows, his comfort, and to start fresh and to start new. So my parents and thousands of Salvadorians left our home, the people who were struggling and who didn't want a part in the death and destruction being, played out. And we came to the United States.
Okay, so would you say you had a dream whenever you came to the United States? What was your dream, like a future career or?
I wouldn't say that I've always been smart or intelligent, but I've always had this inclination of being very curious. Sometimes curiosity can be, turned around and looked at mischievous or, but that's just children, going out there in the world and discovering things on your own and making mistakes. And so I've always been curious. You tell me not to go somewhere, I go. Just because, I want to experience what it is.
Okay.
And so when we came here, I didn't see the same thing my parents saw. Parents don't explain things to you when you're living in war or poverty or things like that. They're just trying to survive. My parents didn't tell me, oh yeah, we're afraid that, I thought that was the way things were. When you're involved in a war, civil, or a conflict, and you're surrounded with that environment, you start thinking that that's the way it is. So I thought that was the way it was. So when we moved here, I was kind of scared. I was a little bit, curious and excited because, my concept of the United States was built upon with movies. So I thought when we came here, everything was going to be okay. My mom was going to find a job. We were going to have a house. We were going to be, driving a BMW or a Lexus. I was going to have the latest shoes, and we're going to live in this beautiful home that's clean and, and have a maid and everything. But it ended up not being that way because, when you don't know how to navigate a new system and you have to start from the bottom and there's not a community that's able to help you navigate this chaotic thing that you're a part of, not knowing the language, not knowing how things work, not knowing how to advocate for your kids in school, not having a network that can point you to the direction of better jobs, you don't get that beautiful big home.
Right, and is that how you got into this gang association?
Part of it is that. I mean, we here in the United States, gangs are not an issue that is brand new. It didn't just sprout out. We've had gangs in this country from the beginning of its inception, right? We've had two groups that called themselves a name, that had leadership, that whatever, that met the needs of the people inside that particular institution. But obviously there's a side that is connected to violence. So we've had that, with people in the communities that were Italians, that were Irish, that were Polish, that were whatever. Any newcomer that has come to this country has joined gangs because of the necessity having to protect the people from the already established groups that are there already. And I'm sure you've heard of in history how certain communities had to go through a lot of hardship to be a part of being an American, and sometimes that meant having to protect your community, You know?
Okay, so you saw this as a way to like protect you and your family. But what other kind of like ideas did you have about the gangs when you entered into it? Was it like a sense of family, that you belonged there?
You know, I saw it as the better deal. Because, you know, I've explained the type of poverty, and you probably know the type of poverty that, you know, people in what they call the third world go through in terms of the lack of resources and financial stability to meet basic needs and, you know, purchase other type of luxuries and wants, right? My type of poverty here in the United States was compiled by the fact that I didn't have, what I lacked was the thing that I thrived, the environment that I thrived in El Salvador, which was a community prior to the war where my mother was there every day. She cooked for us. She hugged us. Before we went to school, she gave us our bendición, our blessing. You know, my father used to tell me, go aprende mucho, go learn a lot. My mom used to go pick me up. She would cook lunch. Then she would go out there in the community to help people. My dad used to go work. He used to work at this coffee plantation. He used to export coffee, you know. He was a businessman, right? And so now here, my mom and dad had to do whatever they could to survive. They worked 2 to 3 jobs, sometimes, you know, alternating the night shift and day shift. In the morning, I was in school. My mother, you know, I didn't see my parents when I came home. You know, they were working again, you know, and I never saw them. My poverty here in this country was a lack of connection, a lack of community, a lack of teachers, pastors, churches, institutions that are there out in our community to be able to support and build a foundation for young people to grow and thrive. It wasn't there. It was severed. You know, and so when people ask me about gangs, I usually say, you know what, don't blame those, you know, poor white kids or those, like, you know, poor black kids or the poor brown kids, you know, labeling them as the cause of your city's gang problem. No, those young people are the result of your ineffectiveness, your unwillingness to channel resources where those things that, the needs that those young people need are being met. So that's what it provided for me. It provided me an alternative family, an alternative community when the entity that was supposed to, the healthy entity, wasn't available, wasn't willing to reach out to me, you know?
Yeah, okay, so now what was like your turning point when you decided, you know, I need to get out of this, this is just too much for me?
You know, gangs provide most of the things that a community, again, is supposed to meet for young people. Acceptance, nurturing, support, protection, financial gain, achievement, right? So, you know, if your mom or your teacher or your counselor or your pastor, you know, you got a C+, you know, you're supposed to get the A. They start complaining, oh my God, you got a C+. You know, gangs, if you go do something bad, they'll give you your props, right? So, you know, young people would rather be radical failures than, you know, be invisible in the good community, right? But that's because those people, those adults, those systems don't give young people even the achievement, you know, kudos that they need. Young people need achievement. So I got that from that entity, and it was available 24/7. It worked holidays. It wasn't like our normal systems that are open from 9 to 5. It was available when I called them. I was there when they called me. And so, you know, I don't blame gangs for everything that happened, you know. The bad thing about joining an institution like that or any other institution is that sometimes you have to, you know, be able to, you know, implement or be able to do certain behaviors that are not necessarily so conducive to goodness or righteousness or peace or building community. And a lot of gangs are, you know, part of the symptoms of or results is you have to be able to you know, apply violence and implement violence. And so my turning point was that, you know, once I started, there was a lot of loss. You know, I lost, I didn't go to school anymore because I didn't care, you know. I was in this like after school program that promised me a full-time scholarship because I was curious and I got sort of good grades, and that went down the tube. My best friend got shot in front of me. My parents, you know, had to be humiliated. The people that brought me from one war to escape one war had to be humiliated when I got incarcerated. They were the only people that came, you know, to jail to see me. I had one friend to write me a letter, you know. And so I don't blame, you know, this entity or the people involved in the entity. You know, I had a lot to do with the choices that I made. And so after I got out of jail, you know, my parents came and picked me up. And when I was a kid, I used to be, you know, because I was ashamed of them. I was ashamed of their poverty and their weakness, you know, because my parents eventually had to become custodians to survive, right? And so I hated their poverty. And I eventually started hating them because they were weak, you know? And there's all these labels that you apply to weak people and poor people, you know, and to people that look like me and that come from places that I come, you know. The word minority is thrown around a lot, right? And so I used to believe I was a minority until I realized that there's nothing minor or insignificant about me. Until I found that there was value in my dreams and in what I wanted to do, and even in that curiosity, right? So when I got out of jail, I remember my parents went and picked me up in this blue, ugly Econo Lodge van. And I used to hate that Econo Lodge van because they used to come and pick me up after band practice from high school, and the popular kids would see me in that stupid Econo Lodge van. And when I saw that Econo Lodge van, it's just this thing that, man, you know, I was glad to see them. I was proud to see them. I was humbled to see them because they've been through all this experience with me. The only people that went through it, you know, and so I made the choice to want to change, you know, and it's hard when you want to change because when you're involved in a system or in patterns that have conditioned to you to react, to be reactionary, right? And, you know, if you're going to be involved in violence, you can't leave any room for forgiveness.
Right, right. So let's go from there. Whenever you got out of jail, did you look around and say, where do I go from here?
Oh, yes. And I try to find, you know, do the normal things that people want to do when they change, you know. Find a job, but, you know, if you have a record, you can't get hired. Even in insignificant, stupid jobs, you know, it always pops up. You know, I try to, you know, get myself clean from drugs. You know, once you're involved in that life, it's kind of hard. You know, you have to, you know, you can't, you know, you have to make the choice, but you need a community to navigate with you and help you along. You know, that's why, you know, alcohol programs and drug programs, there's always the sponsors and, you know, and mentors and people to guide you and, you know, and support you, and you can call and, you know, when you're feeling down. And, you know, it's like that when you're trying to make a big change in your life, you know. And so I was at a stage in my life where I lacked the skills or the know-how or I didn't have the right tools to be able to forgive myself. But here I am trying to make a new choice and navigate in a world that's not able or doesn't believe or doesn't have the will to actually realize that people can be transformed. So it's hard. How can I find a job? I want to change, but you won't give it to me because, you know, this is the system. This is the parameter. You know, we can't trust you. Once a gang member, you're always going to be a gang member. Once you're a thug, you're always going to be a thug. Once you're a prostitute, you're always going to prostitute yourself, right?
Right. And did you have like a mentor, somebody that kind of came with you and you, because your parents seem really supportive and helping you get through all this, but who was it really who kind of helped you and gave you that little push to even enter college?
See, my parents, I finally realized that their job wasn't to do all that. That's why you need communities. You can't be blaming the parents all the time for the misfortunes of children. Sometimes those parents are doing the best that they can with little that they have. That's why, you know, I hate it when, you know, schools and justice systems blame the parents all the time. No, this is a community type of thing. Don't just blame the parents. They're doing the best that they can. What, you're going to criminalize them and judge them and demonize them because they're poor? You know? And so my parents were part of the equation, were part of the variable that allowed me to have the conditions to be able to thrive. The way I changed is, you know, again, I couldn't find a job. At the same time that was happening, there was this experiment. It was a pilot project You know, there was a connection from California. You know, this nonprofit organization that had been started in California in 1977 by this guy who came from the war, and he wanted to change himself and change his community. He was addicted to drugs, and what he wanted to do is change his barrios. So Barrios Unidos means united neighborhoods. He wanted to unite the neighborhoods. And eventually, one man's dream made his way to all the way from California to Washington, D.C., near Northern Virginia. And it was a pastor of a church, Steve Rhodes, from Coolmore United Methodist Church, who got this federal grant, and the federal grant was used to start this little chapter of Barrios Unidos. And the premise was this: we know there's gangs in Northern Virginia and in D.C., and it's going to be kind of hard to teach a social worker or a psychologist how to navigate the streets, right? So why don't we go and do an analysis of the community, and let's find out some of the people who've been in this lifestyle and who want to make a change. So eventually, right, circumstance led to me. This lady calls me up and she tells me, hey, go to this interview. I went to the interview, and I didn't think I was going to get the job, because there was a lot more people who were qualified to do these things that they wanted to do, right? There was a church pastor, and this, a PhD guy, and this sociologist dude. And I show up in my chucks and, my little big shirt, and they're all suited up with ties. I didn't even have a tie. But these people gave me that redemption that I needed to feel, that I longed for. I needed somebody to believe in me, because I didn't believe in myself. So how the hell am I supposed to pull myself from my bootstraps by myself if I don't even believe that I can do it? I didn't even have no damn bootstraps. Some people don't have those bootstraps you're talking about. So you need other people to help you along. So I found these people in this Barrios Unidos group, which was built at ex-gang members who wanted to make a big change, and they knew what I needed to hear. They knew how to go here, because I didn't want people here. And so little by little, they gave me the job, but there were some choices I needed to make. I had to go to school, take these 5 classes at a community college called Northern Virginia Community College. With the 5 classes, I also had to have 2,000 hours of supervision from a PhD lady who, when I did a group or I counseled a kid, we did a thing called supervision, which is she just giving you suggestion, telling you how you did, blah, blah, blah. And so they told me I had to do that. I had to get drug tested. I had to do, get mentoring, get counseling. I had to get good grades to keep my, the little money they gave me for the scholarship. And I was like, damn, this is hard. But I made the choice. Not because there's something special about me, because these people believed in me when I didn't. And so eventually, those 5 classes at the community college eventually turned out to be an associate's degree in science with straight A's. Eventually, that associate degree turned into me doing community work and being connected, doing networking with people, which led to me reconnecting with the lady that had to take away that scholarship to George Mason University. And once we met, I didn't want to talk to her because I felt ashamed. She was like a second mom to me, and I let her down. Sometimes you don't want to face that, right? But we met, and she said, hijo, I have a colleague at Northern Virginia Community College who told me that you're doing so well over there. Come see me next week. I know somebody who knows somebody. She sat down and she said, well, I think it's time for you to come back here. All she had to do was make a phone call, get a signature. Then I started, a journey that ended up in, being able to get 3 bachelor's degrees, one in science, one in biology, one in psychology, one in nursing, all 3 summa cum laude. I'm part of Phi Beta Kappa, and I don't say this to boast that I'm smart. I'm not smart at all. I'm actually very lazy too. And I'm basically what you would consider somebody who has ADHD, because my mind is all over the place. I lose focus, quickly all the time. But what my elders taught me was to have ownership of my education, was that my deficits were not enough to stop me from learning, to have a love of learning. So even though it might take me reading 2 textbooks or watching a video or hearing a story, I take everything that even boring teachers or funny teachers or like pathetic teachers, teach me in the classroom and I make it my own. So I don't learn just for the sake of memorizing. I learn for the sake of internalizing the teaching moments, that gift, that discovery. So every time I learn something even boring, I trick myself into discovering it again. And so that's how change happened. People believed in me and I rose to the occasion.
Okay. And pediatric, that's a big jump instead of just like general family doctor. What interested you in pediatrics?
I love kids. There's some people that love kids, but there's magic when kids love you back.
Right.
There's some people you could like kids, but you're like, kids, I don't know about this guy. For some reason, kids like me, and so I just have this heart for kids because I see their potential. I see that, that they can, that they can be somebody great, and so the way I keep going, because being a doctor is very hard, is the way I motivate myself is I always think about me in the future, being in front of an operating table or in front of like a community, and those people are vulnerable, and they're depending on me to get things done now.
Right.
So that's why I get good grades, because it's about responsibility.
All right, and I've got one last question for you real quick, and it's what would you say to the children that are in these at-risk areas? What piece of advice could you give them?
I would tell these young people and look at them and just hopefully they can hear my heart and let them know that these areas, circumstances that they've gone through, pain and suffering that they have to endure, those things don't define them. Those are things that just happen to them. But those things don't define who they are or where they can be. And so persevere to do whatever it takes not to let that real environment, that challenging environment, to stop them from having dreams, from having a vision of a better tomorrow. Because you never know, and so, and to allow people to come in their life, to be able to know who really wants them to succeed, There's a lot of adults out there. To find a mentor, you need to find a good mentor, somebody that you can trust, to be able to say no. You got to say no sometimes to people. No to yourself when you doubt. No to your partner when they hurt you. No to your parents when they don't believe in you. You got to believe. Because when you do it, they believe. And when you get out there and you fulfill your dreams, you allow other people to come with you. I would also tell them and give them the advice that once they make it, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be being a doctor. Maybe what it means is being a responsible father. Maybe it means changing the patterns of your family structure where you stay behind and you take care of your children. Maybe it means not being a drug-addicted person. Maybe it means not living in poverty. That you have a responsibility to bring somebody with you. Don't do it just for you. Bring somebody along.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, and we'll be right back in just a moment to wrap up Direction Northeast.
My name is Jason Tipton. I'm a manufacturing technician for A.O. Smith, and I got my start at Northeast State. As part of my job here, I do design work with CAD, and those plans are implemented throughout the factory. And I continue to use a lot of what I've learned at Northeast State on a daily basis. I'm the type person that likes working with my hands, and now that I've got a degree from Northeast State, I'm able to do something I enjoy. In manufacturing, it's important to have the right tool for the job. Having an education from Northeast State has been that tool for my career.
That concludes our program for today. We have talked about the life transformation and going from the streets to scrubs. Community is very important to those students at Northeast State Community College, and this program takes a look at a few of the subjects they find important. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of Northeast State Community College, I'm Emily Whitehead, and this has been Direction Northeast.